Hey, what's up, YouTubers? It's me again, Brian, aka Gamer55551, and I am back with a video game review. And for today, we're going to be taking a look at what many dub as Japan's most infamous shooter out there, depending on how you want to look at it. Galgun-2 for the Nintendo Switch, also available on the PS4. And if you are interested in any gameplay footage, though, then if you, like I said, if you're interested in any of the gameplay footage, I'll have a link in the description. You can check that out. Now, let's see. 2 years ago, I did a review of the original Galgun double piece, which was available on not only the PS4 but also on the Vita as well, and also earned the infamous joke on the fact that the game was rated M for her sexual content. This one got the misprint of a rated E for sexual content. A little typo on that one though. And for me though, it was the weirdest and bizarre but interesting game that came out for it though. It was a game that was a on-rail shooter loaded with tons of fan service and so on. And I can't say it wasn't a fun game to enjoy as long as you were willing to embrace the fan service that was into that game. The on-rail shooter was kind of like a little bit of a cross between like what Sega's type of on-rail shooters like House of the Dead or Virtual Cop and so on. And surprisingly, the game actually did very well. It did well on both the Vita and the PS4, even though it didn't get the greatest reviews or anything like that. 2 years later, though, a sequel came out, Galgun-2 for the Nintendo Switch and the PS4, with the PS4 version having the interesting cover of Wild Guns Reloaded's back cover art on it. Boy, that was a mess up for that one. And while the game, while the plot and so on forth is still very much the same or very similar to what Galgun Double Piece was, though, it still is an enjoyable game depending on if you're willing to embrace basically like the first one was, its absurdity and its fan service. So why don't we get started with the pros and the cons. So we'll get started first with the pro, and I will say first we'll start with the gameplay, and I will say the gameplay is fun. The game is an on-rail shooter, but it takes a different approach from the first Galgun, where the first one followed more of a traditional on-rail shooter approach. This one still follows that approach, but you have like full 360 degree rotation, so you will have to sort of use your gun to target or as the game applies, shoot pheromones to the girls that are trying to go after you, but now mostly in an interesting 360 degrees gameplay. And it's kind of interesting. I like this approach. In fact, this game kind of reminds me a little bit, this approach, at least in terms of gameplay mechanics, reminds me a little bit of the mobile version of Rage that came out when the console game Rage came out back in 2011. So it's kind of like Rage, except replace the post-apocalyptic setting with a colorful school setting, with colorful fan service school setting, where instead of mutants trying to kill you, you have love-struck girls trying to kiss you or give you love letters and all that stuff, and you have to fend them off with a pheromone gun and all. So anyway, if you want to check out the Rage gameplay, I'll have a link in the description as well. But in terms of gameplay though, it's fun, and I like this different approach in terms of the 360 degree, where you have to search everywhere and keep an eye out and make sure an enemy or target doesn't attack you from behind and so forth. The next one I do want to talk about is the graphics. And while the graphics aren't, say, mind-blowing in any way, I do like the anime style graphics though. It is what it is. It's not going to win any awards, but the visuals aren't necessarily bad or anything like that, even though the game pretty much points out that it runs on Unreal Engine, probably Unreal Engine 4 or Unreal Engine 3, most likely 4 to be exact. But in either way, I think the graphics are good in the game. They're a nice anime style. They're not going to blow you away, but they look nice and all. And last but not least though, I like the approach they made with this game, which is now they have like a mission-based type of approach where in some missions you have where there are some missions that are free, some of them are side, some of them are the main story to be exact, and some of them are pretty fun. I mean, in one mission I had to basically search for one girl's lost like handheld, which kind of looks like the Nintendo Switch and all, although I'm sure it doesn't exactly look like that. And it's while fending off the girls that are trying to swarm you and so forth. So it's the mission-based approach to the game is fun, and it basically makes it feel like more than your average on-rail shooters, you know, like games like House of the Dead or Time Crisis or Virtual Cop and so forth. So I like that they added this approach for Galgun 2 to be exact. Okay, we're going to take a quick break, and when we get back, we're going to get to part 2 of the cons. And as a bonus part of part 2, I'm going to talk about my thoughts on the movie Deadpool 2 that I saw this week, or at least on a Saturday, since this video will come up on Tuesday, and my thoughts on 2 recently announcements that came out. One regarding the DCEU, and one regarding the possibility that the Dark Universe, Universal's Dark Universe, may not be dead after all. So we'll take a quick break, and we will be right back. Okay, and we're back with part 2 of our video review of Galgun for the Nintendo Switch, also on PS4 as well. And now that I gave you, now that I gave you my pros, why don't I give you my cons, what I didn't like about it. And I have only like 3 that I could think of that I really did not like about Galgun 2, at least on the Switch. We'll start with the first one. Now, as I mentioned in the pros, the game does have a mission-based approach where you select certain missions and go on them in Galgun 2, which is nice, and I still stand behind the fact that it makes it feel more than your average on-rail shooter. That said, however, outside of maybe a couple missions that I have done, though, which there's like the one where I told you about searching for one of the girls' handheld game device or game console, to one where you have to protect one from demons from attacking that girl. Most of the side missions that are in the game are, at least based on my time with it, pretty much the same. So it's not necessarily bad that they had this mission-based approach, but don't expect them to be anything exciting or anything. Most of them are the same, which, depending on your view, either that's good or bad, or you really don't care. So look at it however you want to look at it. But overall, most of the missions in the game are pretty much the same. The next one is, and this one's going to depend on your taste and all, and that is, there's not much of a story here. I mean, let's be real, this is a fan service game, alright? The main focus is basically a guy being sworn by a whole bunch of girls and so on. It pretty much sounds like what most plots in animes can be. I'm not saying all animes are like that, but based on some of the animes that have come out, it does give off that's pretty much what the plot is. This is basically a fan service game. It will probably interest some people, but it probably won't. If you're not interested in those type of games, fan service game, or if you didn't like the first Galgun to be exact, then this game won't interest you at all. This is basically a fan service story, though. Not a bad story, but don't expect any wow or exciting moments or anything like that. At least that's how I saw it. And last but not least, and this applies to the Switch version of Galgun 2, and that is, I'm a little disappointed that they didn't add the motion control option, though. Now, based on my time with the game, though, there is a part where you can use the motion control, and that's when you're push, I think, the X button, and you can zoom in to do like sniper shots with your pheromone gun. And that's really the only part I've seen where you can use motion controls. Other than that, you really don't use. Other than that, there's no motion controls in the game, which is somewhat disappointed, though. While I'm not saying the game should have forced motion controls, it would have been nice to be able to use the motion controls throughout the entire game. Maybe use the other 2 Joy-Cons to be exact, to like point and aim, sort of like that. That would have been a nice addition to have. Again, not a huge con or anything like that. It's just, I'm just a little disappointed they didn't add that kind of feature in the Switch version of Galgun 2. Overall, Galgun 2 is, in my opinion, more of the same though, and that's not necessarily a bad thing at all. The gameplay is still fun. I do think it is a bit of an improvement over the first Galgun, to be exact. I like the whole 360-degree rotation, and the visuals look nice, and I like the mission-based approach. That said, the plot is pretty much sounds similar to how the first one is, and if you were a fan of the first one, you'll probably like the sequel. If you didn't like the first one though, then this one probably won't change your opinion. So overall, for me, Galgun 2 is a fun game, but it probably won't appeal to everybody out there. So it's worth taking a look at, to be exact. If you have a Switch, it's worth trying out on the Switch. If you have a PS4, it's worth taking a look on the PS4. So overall, I thought Galgun 2 is a fun game. Not going to be for everyone, but I still enjoyed it nevertheless. Okay, before we wrap this video up, I do want to give, this is the bonus part of part 2 of my video, and this one I want to talk about 3 things. The first one is about Deadpool 2, or actually make that 2 things, Deadpool 2, and then the DCEU and Dark Universe. So earlier on, at least when this video comes up on Tuesday, on Saturday I saw Deadpool 2, the movie, and I have to say I did enjoy it. However, I felt the first one was better though, okay? This one still had funny moments, this one still was good and enjoyable, but I can't help but feel, and I'm not going to try to spoil anything or say the plot or anything, but I can't help but feel that this one had a bit more of a darker tone than, say, the first one did. I mean, yes, the first one had some serious moments though, but this one felt like this one was like really serious, which is kind of, to me, I thought felt like it was a bit off in a way, but I still thought the movie was still good. I thought Ryan Reynolds did a great job still playing as Deadpool. I thought Josh Brolin did a good job playing as Cable, even though we didn't get really a whole lot of Cable and all, and I thought the other actors played well. Peter was an interesting character. You probably saw him from the Deadpool 2 trailer though, although it would have been nice to see him have more screen time as well, to sort of become like a joke and all that though. He was a joke in the movie, but I was a little disappointed in the way it was handled though. And don't get me wrong, there were funny moments though. There is one where he does do a joke on the scene with Basic Instinct, you know, where Sharon Stone's, not trying to be rude or anything, opened her legs and then closed it like that. They kind of make a joke of that as well. So, but overall, Deadpool 2, in my opinion, is a good sequel. I did enjoy it, but I still felt Deadpool 1 was the better movie, to be exact. And finally, last but not least, some interesting movie news came up that I thought was kind of interesting that caught my attention. So why don't we get started with the first one? And the first one has to do with how the inspiration of the DCEU came about, and some people may thought this was neat, others may not, and that is that Zack Snyder confirms Injustice inspiration in Batman v Superman, and this is from Screen Rant, again, link in the description. Zack Snyder confirms that the video game Injustice God Among Us was inspired for the nightmare sequence in Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice. Created by Mortal Kombat developer NetherRealm Studios and launched in 2013, Injustice God Among Us is a fighting game using DC comic book characters though. Basically, what it says is that the big hook in Injustice universe, after the death of Lois Lane, Superman had turned to evil. Kal set up a Tartaran regime on Earth in the name of safety, but he really just controls it with an iron fist. Injustice isn't the only Elseworld in DC universe that had an evil Superman though. However, it became one of the most popular. According to Zack Snyder, he planned to adopt the story into the DCEU. The nightmare sequence in Batman v Superman, where Bruce Wayne imagined a world controlled by a vicious Superman, had plenty of his own imagery. Yet Superman's role in it does feel resemblant to Injustice from Superman Overlord's statue and the armed soldiers that obey him. On Vero, V-E-R-O, where Zack Snyder seems to forever be revealing details about the DCEU, The director said the homage was intentional. A fan asked Snyder directly if he meant to pay tribute to Injustice and if there was an arc plan for the nightmare sequence beyond Batman vs. Superman. Zack Snyder replied, simply saying, "Oh yeah." Zack Snyder's reply is short, however it does seem to serve as proof that the director had much more planned for the nightmare sequence of Batman v Superman than it just being a symbiosis, or SYMPTOM, of Batman's paranoia. If taken as face value, Zack Snyder's comment meant that the vision was a glimpse of the future, not just for Batman's fear playing with his subconscious mind. Superman turning evil was a part of Snyder's grand master plan, though. It also reads that if Superman was meant to turn evil in the DCEU, this will go up against the whole message of Batman v Superman. Batman's entire arc in the movie is discovering that he is the villain of the story. Superman might be a very powerful alien, but he is still a man, a very heroic man trying to do the right thing. Batman is proven completely wrong about Clark by the end of the movie. Batman's misunderstanding of Superman is part of the reason that the Man of Steel died in the film climax, and why Batman resolved to be a better man himself moving forward. Bruce's worst fear in Nightmare comes to pass would make his entire arc in Batman vs. Superman irrelevant. Now, I have to say about that, learning that inspiration from that the DCEU's original inspiration of it, especially from Zack Snyder, was to use Injustice timeline. I thought it could have worked. I thought that sequence itself was kind of interesting when I saw that sequence, and I thought that would be an interesting idea for a DC movie, the Injustice timeline. But looking back at it now, I think that they may have rushed way too quickly on it. And this is one of the problems with Batman v Superman, though. This was a movie that was trying to play catch-up to Marvel, and I think that's what hurt the film a lot. I think that a Batman vs. Superman movie could have worked, an Injustice movie could have worked, but the problem is, and I've said this before probably, and I'll say it again, is that DC was so focused on catching up to Marvel that they failed to realize why Marvel was successful. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that Marvel took their time and so forth. They didn't rush into Captain America Civil War right away. It took time. It took time to build up to the moment that led to that, though, and we saw what the fallout of what happened with Captain America Civil War, especially when we saw how that somewhat certainly played out in Avengers Infinity War, to be exact. I think this would have been a very neat idea to see an Injustice type take on it, though, an Injustice timeline inserted, if it's done properly, into the DCEU. But unfortunately, it really injured and really hurt the DCEU in general. This whole idea of inspired by it, though, I just think that looking back at it, the DCEU had style, but it lacked substance, and that's what really hurts it, though. It's going to be very interesting to see how the DCEU goes forward. We'll have to see how Aquaman plays out. Maybe that movie might be good. Who knows? But right now, the brand has been hurted a lot, and between what happened with it and all that, I just think it sounded like an idea that could have worked, but they just wasted the potential right out of the gate, and that's really unfortunate and a shame that happened to what happened there. So there's that. The other one is about the Universal Dark Universe. Now, as some of you may have been aware, last year Universal tried to launch their own cinematic universe with the Dark Universe. Although they have tried in the past with Dracula Untold, and that didn't go well. And they also tried to launch it with starring Tom Cruise with the reboot of The Mummy. Unfortunately, the film got heavily panned by critics and fans alike. Some even people viewed it as nothing more than a Tom Cruise movie starring Tom Cruise, directed by Tom Cruise, and so forth. And while the movie didn't exactly bomb completely, I think it made $400 million, it failed to garnish the kind of attention that Universal has hoping for. And the fallout, unfortunately, created several problems. Unfortunately, created the situation that Universal was in with the Dark Universe. In October, just before filming was supposed to start with Bride of Frankenstein. They they pulled the plug on that one, told everyone to go home while they rewrite the script supposedly. People thought that was dead, but then a report from Omega Underground pointed out that that movie was still a go, to be exact, but no release date has been put out. To the fact that the architects of the Dark Universe, or at least this version, Alex Kurtzman and Chris Morgan, if I'm saying the name correctly, both departed right out of the gate, with Alex Kurtzman going back working on Star Trek Beyond. Meanwhile, Chris Morgan went back to the Fast and Furious, and I think he's working on a spin-off on that one, which led to the possibility that the Dark Universe was dead and pretty much done, which is really a shame because I thought there were some interesting ideas if it could work. Well, apparently it seems as though the Dark Universe may not be dead after all, if at least is what Screen Rant is right about is true, though. According to the article, though, again, link in the description, it appears that Universal's Dark Universe may not be dead as it seemed. Universal had attempted twice now to reboot its classic monster movie universe. First with Dracula Untold in 2014, and then Tom Cruise The Mummy in 2017. Neither film was a complete bomb at the box office, but they both performed below expectation financially and failed to impress audience as a whole. Universal even launched an entire trailer for the Dark Universe ahead of the Mummy's release and included the logo with the film opening. Following the disappointing turnout for the Mummy, Universal scrapped plans to jump right into production on a Bride of Frankenstein movie from Dark Universe. The franchise lost its chief architects, Alex Kurtzman and Chris Morgan, followed by a would-be Invisible Man screenwriter, Ed Solomon. Solomon said Universal was reconfiguring the franchise at the time of his official departure from the Dark Universe, but the lack of updates since then has led to many to presume the brand was finally dead in the water. Now, somewhere out of the blue, the Dark Universe is showing new sign of light. Last week, LA artist Robert Vargas, Vargas, posted a photo to his Instagram account by Bloody Discussing from his meeting with the amazing Dark Universe team, which includes Universal Studios executive Holly Goline. He further teased monster things in the works, but held off elaborating, if I'm saying the name correctly, on what exactly it means. It was a tweet that he wrote, quote, great meeting this morning with amazing Dark Universe team. Thank you, Universal Executive Holly Goline and Crash, for the hospitality. Looking forward to contributing to the Universal Picture legacy with my work. Monster things in the works. Stay tuned. Hashtag amazing people. Hashtag Robert Vargas, Vargas. Hashtag Robert Vargas Arch. Hashtag can't stop, won't stop. Hashtag LA. Hashtag artist. Hashtag LA Merle, and so forth, though. This is kind of interesting if they choose to bring back the Dark Universe, though. And quite frankly, I thought the Dark Universe had a very interesting idea. Unfortunately, based on what a lot of critics have said about the film, it felt like they were just setting up for other films rather than telling the story. And given the history and the production trouble it is, it's very interesting that they're willing to take another shot. It's clear that, like DCEU, Universal wants to create its own cinematic universe, which, again, I got nothing against. If they want to create their own cinematic universe, that's fine, if it can work. But they need to, like I said before, need to take their time. And unfortunately, they're going to find themselves in a tough spot, at least this is how I'm looking at it, because the fact the Mummy bombed at the box office, they're really going to have to work hard to convince people why they should trust them again. Why should we invest in this Dark Universe that you created? And quite frankly, they may have to try to call it something else. Calling it the Dark Universe, it's going to associate with the Tom Cruise Mummy movie, so they're going to have to figure out something. So it will be really interesting to see if they take another shot at this, and if so, if we'll see the Dark Universe or something that replaces the Dark Universe, or so far. So either way, it sounds like Universal's not giving up on it, but we'll have to wait and see. hopefully this time around they could become very successful. But given the fact that they didn't learn their lesson with Dracula Untold, given the fact they didn't learn their lesson with The Mummy, it makes me kind of wonder if they're going to learn their lesson the third time around, should they try to take this approach again. So overall, interesting. It sounds like they're going to take another shot with the Dark Universe. Whether it's called that or something different remains to be seen. So we're going to have to wait and see exactly what emerges from this as well. Okay, this concludes my video review of Galgun 2 for the Nintendo Switch, plus my thoughts on Deadpool 2 and the comments made about the DCEU and the Dark Universe. And again, these are my opinion, but what are yours? What are your thoughts about Galgun 2? Is it a game? Did you enjoy the first one? Did you not enjoy it? Is it you're gonna try? Are you gonna pick up the sequel though? Are you gonna get it for the Switch or the PS4? Is it the kind of game that interests you? Is it the kind of game that doesn't interest you at all? And what are your thoughts about the movie Deadpool 2? Did you enjoy it? Did you think it was better than the first one? Or were you like me who thought, you know what, it was good, but you still felt the first one was better? What about the comments made by Zack Snyder pointing out the possibility that, or pointing out that Injustice video games was inspiration for Batman v Superman? Do you think this was an interesting idea? Would you have liked to see them gone with Zack Snyder's route? Or do you think that just ruined the whole DC? You think that was one of the main reasons that ruined the whole DCEU in general? Or do you think it was a bad idea? Do you think it was maybe too soon to introduce the Injustice part of the DCEU? Or do you think it was the right time, to be exact? And what about the possibility that Universal may try again, a third time, with the Dark Universe again, with this new person that they're hiring? Do you think this is the right approach? Do you think they'll learn their lesson this time around? Or do you think that Universal should just abandon the whole cinematic universe and the Dark Universe altogether? Do you agree with what I said in this video? Do you disagree? Do you have a difference of opinion? As always, sound off in the comment section below. Let me know what you think. I hope you hit that like button. I would appreciate it. I hope you do subscribe to my YouTube channel. Also, feel free to share this video if you want to, and feel free to donate to my channel if you like. You could do it through PayPal me or Patreon. Links will be in the description of this video. And I will see you again next time when I do another video. Hopefully that will be soon. Until then, from Southern California, I wish you all a good day then. Bye!